Now everybody gets to see me struggle. Hey everybody, welcome to the Tipsy Tagalongs podcast, sponsored by Journey More Often. We're here today at Glen Manor Vineyards. You may have seen us go up live for like 3 or 4 seconds, and then I realized that I had to put the phone and connect it to the Wi-Fi here because we have no service. I won't talk about who my provider is or anything like that, but no service out here in the mountains. This is a great location. You can see the vineyard in back of us. Ooh, before I get started, we've got to have the public service announcement. Got to turn on the other recorder. Public service announcement. Drink responsibly, right? Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and do stupid things, okay? People can do stupid things when they get drunk or drink. You don't even have to be drunk and do stupid things, okay? So, but don't drink and do anything you shouldn't be doing. Have fun while you're drinking, though. That's all good, because drinking is fun to do. Okay, so here we are. We've got Cassie, who is both my co-host, and she is manager here at Glen Manor Vineyards. And we've got Nick, who I don't know your actual, like, what you do here yet.
So I'm assistant Vinarone, so
Ooh.
any Vinaroning that needs to be done, I'll assist in it.
Vinaroning.
Yes.
Okay, I think we just coined a new word, right? I love that. I love that. But you can see here, this is like a gorgeous location. So yesterday we were out of Capstone, over the mountains that way. They had a gorgeous location. You could see here in the background, oh my God, it's just pretty awesome, actually. And it's quiet. It's really quiet. And we don't have as much wind as we had yesterday, so that's like awesome. But it's so cool here. So why don't we start talking about the vineyard?
Sure, absolutely.
Actually, why don't we pour our first wine and then start talking about the vineyard, right?
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds like a plan. Yes, let's start with the Morales Rosé, and then we'll talk a little bit about the winery and vineyard here. So this is our 2023 Morales Rosé. It is named after the Morales family, and you might be able to see their vehicle in the back of us. The Moraleses are Jose.
Way up on top of the hill, just before the crest of the mountain.
Way up on top there. So yes, Jose, Dad, has been working alongside of Jeff, who is our owner and winemaker, since 2006, so almost 20 years, which is pretty amazing. And as his kids became adults, they started working here as well. So it was 5, now 4 of his grown children working alongside of Jeff and Nick. If it has to do with vineyard harvest cellar, it's done by those 7 people. We rarely bring in help throughout the year, and they're full-time with us. And so this wine is named after the Moraleses because it would be hard to have any of our wine if it weren't for them.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, actually. Yeah,
It
got a whole
really is.
family doing that.
The whole family affair. So yes, this rosé is what we're calling an intentional rosé. The majority of this fruit, Cabernet Franc fruit predominantly, is brought in specifically for this wine. And so when we're doing that, you know, typically with rosé, what you see is the Saignée method, where you're bleeding off a portion of your red grapes as you're pressing off that juice to make rosé. And there is a small portion of that in here.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of this Cabernet Franc fruit is brought in, again, intentionally for this wine. Brix levels, sugar levels are a little bit lower. The acidity is a little higher. So
Okay.
this wine is meant to be very bright, very refreshing, very lively. You know, keep that acid on the back end of your palate and totally dry. No residual sugar on this one.
I'll be the judge of all that. Actually,
judge
the overall consumer base is the judge for that, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, did you? My mind went on a blank. Did you describe all the grapes that go into this?
No, I did not. So
Okay.
the predominant grape is Cabernet Franc, just over 80%, but there is a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon and a little bit of Nebbiolo in here as well, which is the only Italian varietal that we're growing on site. So,
Yeah, nicely dried, very tasty.
right?
Yeah, I like that. You can eat a lot of things with this. I think you could even get into the red meat scenario with this one.
It's a really refreshing wine, like we had already mentioned, but it's also a wine that, yes, you know, you can do your summer dishes, like your shrimp salads, but it's also an awesome Thanksgiving wine because you have that bright, fresh fruit and the acidity to cut through all those fatty, heavy foods that you're eating around the holiday table, which is pretty cool. Very versatile.
You had me at shrimp salad, though.
Me too.
I love shrimp salad.
Me too. I love shrimp salad.
But yeah, I mean, this could easily go with Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, for sure, definitely.
It has like enough that it would complement. Enough. That's a very technical term.
Definitely. Yeah, and this wine, we say rosé all day. This is definitely a rosé all day, every day,
I mean, this is
365.
Yeah, standalone.
Oh, for sure.
You could do that without even blinking on it. We all know a lot of wines, even rosés. Some of the rosés you want to drink with something.
Oh yeah.
Right. Or you want to eat with while you're drinking the rosé.
Sure.
This one's definitely a standalone.
Definitely.
You could even do this, by the fire. That's my test. Can you do it by the fire? Because then it's a standalone. Now if you got the fire, I recommend it for the summer fire versus the winter fire.
Nice.
So
Nice.
if you go,
Summer
do you guys have like fire pits here?
We don't, and it's really just because we're so small. It's we're just trying to keep it nice and.
Well, it's a whole nother
quiet.
dynamic.
It is. It is.
Fire pits
Yes.
are maintenance.
Yes. Exactly.
And
exactly.
so that's a lot of
exactly.
effort. But
Yeah.
I will say, we when you come in, so we came in through the tasting room. We're sitting out on the back patio. There is a ton of seating on. There's a hillside where it goes down. You can see behind us is actually a lower level. So there's this hillside that they have these really cool lounge chairs, and I've sat on them. Diane and I have sat in those lounge chairs over there, and it's just so peaceful to enjoy. And they're spread out enough so that you're not like in somebody else's face kind of thing. So which is really nice. It's not one of those deals where you feel like it's kind of yours, but there's other people there.
Very true. Very
All
true.
right, so let's talk about the vineyard and the wine. Well, no, the grapes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the grapes themselves. So that would be what was your you verbed your title, I think, right?
Yeah, I've been around out there.
Yeah, he venturones. So Nick, let's talk about the grapes themselves, okay? Roughly how many acres? I'm not going to hold you to this.
Yeah,
I mean,
about 18.
18. All right. So that's a pretty good number of acres, actually. So you get a good yield out of that. What kind of grapes do you have on there? Because I've seen the map. There's a map. I've seen it,
Yes.
and it's pretty cool. So like, there's different fields. Like, and keep this in mind. We've never talked about this before on a podcast, but all vineyards have a map. Okay, and they have the map, and they've got these areas drawn off where they have the Cabernet Franc grapes, and they have the whatever grapes they have these sections on the map. And so you guys have a map, and it's pretty cool because you've got some of them are actually you've got, I think, one grape that's in a couple of different fields in different places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's different years of planting. So you have two vineyards back here. You have the lower vineyard, that was the original planting, and then everything that you see up along the top there, below kind of that crest of the mountain, that's the upper vineyard that was planted starting in 08, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. When was the original vineyard planted?
1995.
Yeah, sorry if I already asked that question. Wow, so that's so it's had plenty of time to mature, those grapes or those vines.
Well, and it kind of varies because, like, even the Nebbiolo that we were talking about, the earliest planting up there was 2017. So stuff is still going on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And actually kind of that lower spot where it doesn't quite look filled out with vines, but you can kind of tell that there's rows up there. We just planted, I think, a little bit over an acre of Nebbiolo this past spring. So
Ooh, some more Nebbiolo.
progressive.
Can't have enough Nebbiolo.
That's what Jeff thinks too.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I love
And-
it. It's a great grape.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Wow, this is really good. So yeah, we'll keep talking about that. So what's really interesting, you say you're a small vineyard, but you actually have production here, right?
We do. Everything's done here on site. The only thing that we don't have physically as far as machinery is a bottling line, and that's pretty typical. for
Yeah.
vineyards, especially smaller vineyards. And so, but everything is done right here. And then even the bottling does take place here. We just use a bottling truck that drives on
Yeah.
up. So
Yeah, those are really cool.
They are.
Yeah, one of these days, we're actually going to show up at a vineyard while they're doing the bottling because it's really cool to watch.
it is. It's really cool.
You know, and the truck comes in and the bottles get set up and it just bottles the wine, and then and then you have to put the labels on and all that stuff afterwards. But man, it's so cool to watch.
Very
I was
cool.
at I think it was 1723 Vineyards when they did theirs.
Oh, nice.
One year we parked in the back. As close as we could, because once you're bottling, it takes up space, right? Because you got to stage and do all that stuff, and so we parked, and I just kind of peeked around the corner and looked at it, and it was really fun to watch,
Really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
All right, let's. Should we move on?
We shall. So our next wine is our 2023 Sauvignon Blanc, and so this wine is 100% Sauvignon Blanc. Fun fact about Glen Manor: anytime you see a varietal on our label, it's always 100% of that varietal. That's just a stylistic choice that we make here, because we want you to know what you're drinking, have transparency there. So this wine is, when we were talking about those different blocks, there are a couple different blocks that we have here on the property of Sauvignon Blanc. Now, most of this fruit's coming from our 95 planting, and those are the oldest vines on the property. So almost 30 years old, which is, not long for anywhere else in the world, but for Virginia, that's pretty significant.
But it's also mature.
Exactly, very
it's
much so.
also mature, so that gives you really nice grape production.
Very much so.
Nice,
and
nice.
even on those 95 plantings, we have what's called an open lyre training system. It essentially is two separate canopies: a canopy that is trained to grow towards the west, a canopy that is trained to grow towards the east. Different characteristics coming off of both of those canopies off of the same vine, which is pretty cool. Some years that fruit comes in within a day of each other. Some years it comes in within weeks of each other. So a pretty distinct, delineation between the two. Then we have an 03 planting and a 2017 planting, which is a different clone than the older planting. So even though this is 100% Sauvignon Blanc, there's really a lot that goes into it. It essentially becomes a blend of all of these different blocks, which is how we're striving to get this balance of fruit and ripeness relative to acidity without adding any sugars, without adding any acids. So we do no chaptalization here. We do no acidification on our wines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how on the back of the label, so you can't see that, but we can see the back of the labels here. Cassie and I. Nick, you're like blind for the back. But there is the rundown of what grapes are in it.
Oh,
so
yes.
That's pretty cool. So this is 100% Sauvignon Blanc. The previous one was, I think, 84% Cabernet Franc, 8% Cabernet Sauvignon, and 8% Nebbiolo. I almost said 9%. That would have been 101%.
Yes.
So my math would have been down the tubes at that point. Okay, so we have, did you say that this was oaked?
I'll let Nick, I do
Wait,
know the answer, but I'm going to let Nick
Oh,
take
and I
it.
wanted to ask the question while you're Venturoning out there.
Right.
You're the one who sets it up on the vines to make sure that it's producing the maximum and the best grape, quality.
Yeah. All of the handwork is done shared, I guess, amongst the seven of us, but definitely the Rouses definitely do more than I do. But that's also just kind of split between winery and vineyard. But the quality is the biggest thing, so it's kind of matching it to the vintage. So depending on the weather and different things like that, and how things are ripening, if it looks like you're going to get too much volume where it's not going to have the concentration,
Right.
then you'll go out and do some handwork to try and get the ripeness there. You're not going to overcrop it just to get a certain amount of yield.
Right, because realistically, the most important part of a bottle of wine is how it tastes.
Absolutely.
Okay, and if you can't maintain the quality of how it tastes, you're like, why am I doing that then?
Yes.
And so, and as a result of how the weather is and different factors that you have to deal with, you may need, like you said, to cut back on the volume in order to get the remaining grapes to ripen correctly. Did I say that right? I'm actually gaining knowledge as I go. But yeah, and that's not, and that's it's a balance. And it's an everyday process, right? So you got to look at them almost every day, and well, you do actually. You just have to go out there every day and look at the grapes and see how they're developing and work through that process. And that's why they have people full time to do that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Because it's not an easy task. I mean, it takes a lot of work, and so when you pay whatever you're paying for a bottle of wine, that's what goes into it. And you know, a lot of people are like, "This is just a great bottle of wine. I'm really not sure I want to pay that much for it." I'm like, "Well, you should figure out what went into it first, because
that's right.
Because you know, typically the bottles are priced based on two factors: what the market will bear, number one, you know, because you're not going to be able to, you know, charge like, you know, $150 to $200 for a bottle in some cases. But the other thing is how much work is into it, how much it costs to actually produce that bottle of wine. And you know, there are formulas and factors and things like that. And sometimes you just wing it because you're like, this is a great bottle of wine, I'm just going to charge more, because it is a great bottle of wine. And honestly, I don't have enough you know, as a consumer, I'm like, okay, so if I have to pay a little bit more for a bottle of wine, I will do that. Because if it goes, it's like, and we'll talk about this later. Well, we've already started talking about it. If it goes with my shrimp salad,
right,
then I'm going to pay an extra $1 or $2 for that bottle of wine. And that's, you know, it's, so if you're looking at it from a perspective, from a consumer's perspective, and I'm, you know, this is me like promoting wineries, but you want to have, there's nothing worse than picking a bottle of wine that doesn't go with the food you have.
Right.
It's like ugly. Like in different shades.
Yes.
You know, and you're just stomaching that bottle of wine because it may be a great bottle of wine with another food, but it doesn't matter. Right. It's not going with the food that you. So my thing is, okay, so put a cork in it, and get another bottle of wine, or eat it. You know, but either way, you know, don't drink that bottle with that food, because if it's not going, don't torture yourself.
Yes.
But anyway, so we got off on a tangent a little bit. All right, so now I asked the question, and I'm coming back to the question because I was the one who diverted the conversation. Did this get, and I think I already know the answer. I should probably write it on a piece of paper and slip it to Cassie just in case to see if I'm right. Does this have any oak influence?
No.
Yeah. So I guessed right. But you'll never know. But yeah, so it's crisper.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
but
crisper.
At the same time, it kind of rides the middle a little bit, I would say. Not from an oak influence in terms of smell or taste, but there's a really nice textural component.
Yeah.
Where it's not super edgy. You do get bright acidity, but then it's fuller in the middle.
Yeah, the flavor profile is pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And 2023 was a
really
warmer growing season too, so that definitely had an impact on just, you know, the ripeness of the fruit on this wine, and again that flavor profile like Nick was talking about. You know, I feel like a lot of Sauvignon Blancs can taste like you're drinking water that's flavored like wine, and this is not that at all.
Oh yeah, the unoaked ones.
Yes.
Yeah, that is tough. That is tough. And it happens because, you know, sometimes the wine just does its own thing. You know, and then you gotta work with it. You know, you gotta massage it a little bit in the process. Now, do you get into the chemistry as well? Or is
I mean, I'm really into that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
But it's not like I'm super knowledgeable. I figure out the things that I need to know to make things work.
Yeah, so there are different things that you do at different times to make it taste differently, which is, you know, that's code word and vague for just being, you know, it's an art.
Very much so, and that's something that, you know, Jeff, our owner winemaker, very much believes, is that it is a little bit more of an art form than it is a chemistry experiment. And we very much believe in not manipulating the wine, you know, just not manipulating the fruit. Let the fruit speak for itself. Let the wine speak for itself.
So what you're doing is you're just guiding the fruits.
Exactly. And, you know, Nick really knows that too, because that's what he's working on in the cellar in production.
So you're getting that kind of feeling from Jeff as he does his things, and which is pretty cool. So if you're working out there and you're working in here, that's actually really, you know, that'd be a nice job to have. I mean, it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. I've seen.
It is a lot of work.
I think I was here one time when it was hot out, and you guys were all like sweaty because it was just a lot of work out there. If people don't understand sometimes, you know, when when you're out there, it's do or die. You know, you got to do it.
Yep.
You know, and so if you've got to trim it out, if you've got to, you know, go out there and maintain something in the, you know, in the vineyard, you know, it's got to be done like then, right
Absolutely.
then. So there's something like, I think I'll push this off to tomorrow, because if you push it off to tomorrow, suddenly your yield is like half,
Yep.
So
and you're like, what just happened?
that's the big thing, I think, when we talk about no, I guess, chemical manipulation.
Right.
So no acidification, no adding sugar in the winemaking process. That's where timing is super crucial on that, because you want to get it
Right.
right where you, exactly where you want it to. And I mean, you can, to a certain point, you can kind of force a wine to be a certain way, depending on what you want. But if you are really dedicated to, I only want this fruit to be the representation of this wine, you have to
Okay.
be on top of it.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Yeah, and I like the fact that, because you can ferment the wine just by adding sugar.
Right, exactly.
But
exactly.
if you use the sugar in the grape itself, that's a different flavor profile.
It absolutely
changes
is.
the
It
taste
does.
of the wine.
It really does.
So, you know, to insist on that means that you're upping the level of quality based on doing that. You know?
Very much so.
And we're not going to talk about those, you know, mass vintages that people sell in the grocery store that you buy, but that's what they do basically, you know, because they just throw a whole bunch of the same grape together from a whole bunch of different vineyards, and then they throw some sugar in there because they can force it to have that exact same taste.
Right, because it's more of a recipe, you know. Whereas here, it's very, very vintage driven. Very vintage driven.
Yeah, and there's a protocol, but you can't confuse protocol with recipe.
Yes, exactly.
Those are two different things.
For sure.
And this is so much fun, because people learn about this stuff, you know, as you go along. And there's like, you have to listen. We have probably, I don't know, a couple dozen podcasts of, you know, going to different places, and you learn something new at each one. And I love the fact that it's vintage driven.
Yes.
Versus, you know, just making it taste, you know,
A
consumer,
specific way.
you know, yeah.
Yeah.
So I see it's a Vin Blanc,
Vin Blanc, yes, Vin Blanc.
and that's 77% Sauvignon Blanc and 23% Petit Manseng.
Yes, so this is a fascinating
Yeah.
little wine. We made this wine for the very first time in the 2022 growing season. We had a fantastic growing season, so great quality, which is of course always the goal, like we've talked about. But we also had great yields, so not just quality but quantity too, which is kind of the dream. And so we were able to make all of our varietal Sauvignon Blanc, all of our varietal Petit Manseng, and that is when Jeff said, I'm going to make a new wine by combining those two grape varietals.
Nice.
And that's when most of us here said, okay, well, you have fun with that, Jeff. Because it is just it's a fascinating blend. You don't see these two varietals put together very often at all. I very much
First and only time I've seen it.
Right,
you know?
exactly. We only know of one other vineyard in Virginia that does have a combination like this. But you know what? It went over super well, that vintage. And 2023 was a great growing season as well. Really even better than 2022. Fabulous growing season. And we were able to make this wine again. So this wine starts off more Sauvignon Blanc, and then it just takes this right-hand turn, and you have all the body and the weight and the fruit of Petit Manseng. It's just a really interesting
Which is
wine.
crazy. I mean, you're looking at this stuff. So it takes somebody with some vision, if you will.
Oh, for sure.
And you know, you can do the Cabernet Sauvignon, you can do the Sauvignon Blanc, you can do the Rosé, you can do this, but it takes somebody with vision to look for something that people normally don't look for.
Yes.
And
yes.
I love that, because you know, we discovered that yesterday at the meadery.
Yes,
right?
oh,
we were at
definitely.
Honey and Hops, and these guys had a mead made out of spruce tips.
Yeah.
Like for real, like off of the spruce tree. They cut the tips off of the spruce tree, and you're like, oh, that would be awful, right? And then you taste it, and you're like, wow, that's really, really good.
Right.
So go and check out our video on that one. We just did that yesterday, and it was phenomenal. So you're looking at stuff. So that's the artist, though.
Right,
The artist,
exactly.
the artist says, you know what? I wonder what this would taste like.
Pretty much.
And I think it might actually work. And everybody bails, right? This is so typical. Everybody bails. They're like, that's all you.
Literally, that's what
all you."
happened. Yeah, that's what happened. And then we all tried it, and we're like,
Oh,
yeah, this is
crap!
really
I
good.
should have been in. I should have thrown in.
Pretty much.
But it was like, I'm out. And he's like, full house.
Pretty much. This wine is, and we call it Von Blanc Table White. That was really the idea that Jeff had for this wine. I like to say this wine goes with everything and nothing. You know, it almost tricks you into thinking that there's sweetness, that there's residual sugar. There is not. This wine is completely dry, but it just has so much, again, that body, that weight, that fruit going on.
Yeah.
It can pair so well with, chicken, seafood, great cheese wines. You can go so many different directions.
Oh,
with
I like
it.
that thought.
Oh
Cheese
yes.
wine,
Oh
yeah.
yes. Perfect table wine. Put this on the table and nobody's going to be offended in the least, and can just go with all of the things.
So, and I was going to mention that when you first taste it, it has a hint of sweetness, but
Yes.
it's not sweet.
Exactly.
And because the finish is dry.
Yes, and
that's how you can tell,
Mhm,
right?
acid.
That the sugar doesn't reside in you.
exactly.
So that's a pretty interesting concept for this wine,
Definitely.
if you will.
Yep.
So you can taste that hint of sweetness. So for people who like sweet wines,
Yes, and that's the thing.
this is a great sweet, not sweet,
Yes.
sweet dry wine.
When we
Right?
if we have somebody walk into the tasting room, because we typically, sometimes our Petit Manseng does have some residual sugar, but if that's not on the tasting menu
That's
and
crazy.
somebody wants a sweeter wine, we'll direct them to the Von Blanc, because
Yeah.
it doesn't technically have sweetness, but it perceives that way with fruit. Our brains, especially in America, we tend to taste fruit and think sweet, and that's exactly what's happening.
Well, it is.
here.
It is definitely the fruit
Yes.
versus the sugar.
Exactly.
Well, which is fructose, but on the other hand, it's the fruit sugar
Yes.
versus the actual sugar.
Mhm.
So, but it's not. Again, it doesn't stay with you.
Nope.
It's just the first roll over the tongue of the wine itself, and after that, you're like, ooh, I like this one.
Yes.
Right? And
yes,
it does. So, what would you? You said it goes with everything. I mean, I don't know about everything.
Well, maybe not everything, maybe not a steak.
I mean,
that might be interesting.
Peanut butter,
but...
I don't know.
Yeah, that might be a little rough.
I
Might
did
be
have a
little-
conversation with a friend, and he's like, you just can't pair wine with peanut butter because it's really, really tough.
I would do maybe,
Actually, you know what?
Concord,
I'm going to actually say this actually could pair with peanut butter because it's
very fruity.
So the taste is so. It's not bold, but it's unassuming. So you have this great unassuming taste, and then you probably could eat peanut butter and drink this.
You probably could.
Yeah.
You probably could.
So we may have found the one.
I call this the breakfast wine because I'm like, who needs a
Oh.
mimosa? Because this is so bright and so lively. Again, you have the acidity like you would get with orange juice. It's just delicious. Great brunch wine.
Top it with an orchid,
Yeah.
and then you got your breakfast drink,
Mm-hmm.
right, for brunch.
That's right.
This would actually be very good for brunch.
That's right.
Yeah.
And again, pair it with all the foods. Wow. Quiche. That would be
Ooh,
sweet
quiche,
you know?
yeah. Peanut butter quiche. No, sorry. Sorry, folks. I just
Yum,
went
yum.
off.
Yum, yum.
Yeah, good luck with trying to sell
Right.
that one. Oh, once we come out, it'll be Gary's peanut butter quiche, right? Everybody will go, I bailed on that. I shouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, different and interesting are the two descriptors we get on this wine the most, because people are confused, but it's always in a good way,
It is confusing.
Right,
It
but-
really is like, no, it's not what I expected.
Right.
And it's not
Mhm.
what am I experiencing here?
What is happening? But again, in a good way.
Yeah.
In a
No,
good
it
way.
is absolutely in a good way. I
Mhm.
love it because it's so different, right?
Right.
It's so different, and yet it still remains a solid choice
Yes.
for to drink. And this is a good standalone as well as with food.
Definitely.
So, it's one of those wines where you're like, oh, this is so cool. I got to get my friends to taste this.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So you buy that bottle and you take it over to your friend's house for the reason of sharing it with them, not giving it that as a gift.
Yes, 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 yes. Exactly, exactly.
Because I'm not giving this one. I'm not giving as a gift. I'm keeping it. Right. So I'm gonna. If I'm opening one of these bottles, I'm drinking at least some of it.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's not going to go to somebody else.
It's an investment.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God, that's great. All right. So all right. We have.
Well, now we're shifting
Oh,
over
the
to the
Petit
reds.
Rouge.
Shifting over to the reds. So we had the table white with the Vin Blanc. We're going to have the Petit Rouge, which is really our table red. So we had an original quote-unquote table red with our Vin Rouge. And Vin Rouge we have right now just in half bottles. And it's not on the tasting menu. But
Gotcha.
Petit Rouge, we also made this wine for the first time in the 2022 vintage. Again, great quality, great quantity. And so we were able to make 2 new reds. And this was one of them. And so this is really the quintessential true table red. Light-bodied, fruit-forward,
Right.
soft tannins. That was the thought process behind making the Petit Rouge. You know, Jeff really loves, and Nick does too, these Italian-style reds
Yes.
where the alcohol content is a little bit lower. This wine is only 12.9% alcohol, which for a red is low.
That is pretty low.
But the acidity is higher, and a lot of people think, you know, acid. They're thinking, you know, vinegary. That's not what this is. It's juicy. It's bright. It's juicy. It keeps you coming back to it. Makes it a good food pairing wine. And so that was the mentality with the Petit Rouge.
Mhm.
It's like being over in a little Italian trattoria and getting your carafe of Vino Rosso, you know.
Yeah. Or take it to your favorite BYOB.
Exactly,
Italian
exactly.
BYOB.
Oh, yes.
We have like 2 or 3 of those in the area where we
That's-
live back home.
That's awesome.
And you can just, and some people don't even know that they're actually
BYOB.
BYOB. They're like, wait, they sell, like, wait, they have a bar there. And yeah, they're still a BYOB. And you can
So
drag your bottle in and people look at you like you're crazy. But you could buy any of these bottles and bring it in with you kind of thing. BYOBs are a lot of fun.
Yeah, I
you
love
know?
BYOBs.
I'm not taking away from those who sell, because we support both.
Right.
Believe it or not, I mean, we buy, sometimes we'll just buy a bottle of their wine. It's at this restaurant, but sometimes we'll bring one in when we're in the mood to because we like to have a bottle of wine, right? So why not get a bottle that you like and bring it in rather than experiment with the place you're going to? But BYOB is good, and I do remember the smell, the fragrance of this one.
Oh,
I do
yes.
remember this.
Yes. Great nose on this wine. Really pretty, I think, is a good descriptor. Now, this is predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon had a moment in 2022. We had great Cabernet Sauvignon fruit, but really has a little bit of everything. It's not your traditional Bordeaux blend because there is 4% Nebbiolo in here. So
Right.
it's just, again, wonderful table wine. You know, like you were saying, Gary, pizza, pasta, that's very much what we think of when we think of a pairing thing with, or nothing at all.
Yeah. So this one, it's pretty smooth. And it's good. And what we'll just I'll repeat it ad nauseum. But every institution, every place that actually produces any sort of alcohol has their go-to, right? And this is like the go-to wine. So if you want to, hey, I just want to, I don't want to experiment and taste right now. I just want a wine that's going to go with it. And this is the go-to wine.
That's exactly, this is your Tuesday night red. This is your, I'm sitting around the fireplace. That, again, I call this wine, another thing I say about this, easy drinking without lacking interest. There's definitely still interest here, but the tannins are so soft that you don't have to have, you could do a steak with it, but you don't have to have that with it. You know, it's not necessary to enjoy this wine. So, yes.
And some of the other wines that we make, like we'll get to it eventually, like Saint Ruth, but also Hot Hill. Those wines, they absolutely deliver when they are released and you can taste them, like the current release. But they're also made to age, so they'll deliver in that regard as well.
Definitely.
But at the same time, along with that, like you have different price points and everything like that. So you can lay some of those down but you can also have a wine like this today,
Right.
and there's a reason that you're not paying the same prices. for this.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
Exactly,
That's a
yeah.
good point.
Yeah, 'cause,
That's,
I mean, you
it's
see
a
the-
really really good point because we bought wines that they say open in. So when we went to Argentina back in 2013, right? We go to Argentina and they had a bottle of wine. They're like, we're not going to give you a taste of this wine, but you're going to open it up in 2025,
Jeez.
and you're
Wow.
going to pay $90 for
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and you're like. Really? And so, I mean, we're very adventurous, and we had one that we opened up, I think, earlier this year.
Nice.
We had one that we opened up in during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We went outside on the back porch and did a wine tasting. It was one of our first podcasts, believe it or not. It was like an unintended podcast.
Yeah.
And then we were like, we should do this like regular. and at real places instead of our back porch, right? And so, but we did it. We opened up this bottle that we had, and it was a 10-year-old bottle, and that's
Pretty significant.
that. Yeah, I mean, to keep a bottle for 10 years. First of all, that in our household, I mean, we love to drink wine, so
Very impressive.
Yeah, so if you go to down in the wine cellar, we literally have to segregate the bottles that we want to keep longer,
Mm-hmm.
and so we opened it up, and it was amazing, and it was everything they said it was going to be.
Right.
But it's hard because for me, it's a matter of self-control, and it's also, there is a price point that you have to deal with on that, and it's not going to be your everyday wine. You're not going to buy that for 10 years from now, your everyday wine.
Right.
You're going to buy your everyday wine.
Exactly.
Every day.
And that was
You know.
exactly the thought process behind this. Like Nick was saying, this is, drink within the next couple of years. And this is,
Right.
not the save it, tuck it away sort of wine. This is, again, it's a random Thursday and I'm
Right.
making a pizza for dinner. Boom, here you go. You know?
And if you want to save a wine, folks, you can save a wine, but most wines, unless they tell you you should,
Right.
you probably should not.
Right.
Or you could just make that into like red vinegar if it's a red wine, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's exactly what it is when it's, a little older. But, the reality of it is that most wines aren't meant to be, consumed, in a reasonable time period.
Right.
And I've seen, we've gone to different places and they say, well, hold on to this if you can for like 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
Not beyond.
Right.
Because it'll mature, and it's interesting because guys like Nick will tell you there's still stuff going on inside
Oh,
the
for
bottle,
sure,
right?
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
look at it, you go, it's been bottled. What the heck could possibly continue to go on, right? You think about that, you're like, how does it, wait, now you're blowing my mind because it's bottled, it's corked. What could possibly happen
Mm-hmm.
in 3 years
Yeah.
that I'm going to like it better? And but but the chemistry inside that the grapes, and it's set up that way because guys like Nick who tinker can do it. They set it up and they say, okay, this one's going to go.
Right.
And sometimes you're deliberate with that, right? I think you said that earlier. You're deliberate with that. This wine, we're going to force it to mature in 4 or 5 years. And it's a protocol that you set up inside, the production and the process part of it. And boom, the next thing you know, you've got this massively good red wine in like 4 or 5 years.
Well, and that's actually something that we talk about, like when we go through the blending trials to make these wines. So, like especially on Hotter Hill, St. Luke, really the conversation ends up being: is this a today wine,
Yes.
or is this a wine that they
During the process.
Right.
So,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
so when it's big, and I mean, especially because you're talking about blending trials of the most recent vintage, so super young wines.
Mm,
Probably just went into barrel or have only been in barrel for a few months. And we're not talking about approachability, where you can feel that the wine is big but not too big. It's basically, does it hold its own? And you can get a feel for that in the moment, but there's enough there that you see all the potential at the same time.
Right.
Where if it's a little bit lighter,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what
Yeah.
we call more of a today.
That's a Van Gogh moment right there.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at this wine and you're thinking, it's good now. It's good now. We can produce this.
Right.
But if we hold on to it, if we just tweak it a little bit more and hold on to it for a few years, it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's hard. It really is hard.
Yeah, and you can. But by the way, you can't do every wine like that, right?
Right.
And I guarantee you, it's one of those aha moments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because every season is different. We talked about this a lot. Every season is different. Every grape is different. Every grape reacts to the different seasons differently. But you get to that point where you have this, whoa, this one's gonna be the one.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like this, you know, surfers.
Yeah.
You know, they ride waves all day long, but they get to the point where like, this is the one, you know, and they nail it and they ride it and that's the way it works, right? So you look at it and you go, this is the one, and this is, and now we're going to be deliberate. So there's that crossover, you know, time frame where you look at it, you look at it, you look at it, you look at it, and you go, all right, we're just going to bottle it regular. Or you look at it, you look at it, you look at it, you look at it, and you go, ooh, yeah, we're going to take this one to the next level.
Yes.
And
Yes,
that's
yes,
pretty
yes.
cool. I hadn't thought about it in that direction, but that's a really good point.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, look at you!
Yes, the
Hey,
yellow
it's
jackets.
November.
I know.
How do we have yellow jackets in November?
Still here.
All right, that's an interesting diversion. Yeah, they are still here. And by the way, you are literally one of the most consistent pourers
Oh,
I've
thank
ever
you.
seen.
Thank you very much.
I mean, yeah,
Try.
I mean, it's like same amount every time. And you know, we're not here to get drunk. You know,
Right,
we're
exactly.
just here to taste the
Just
wine. So
taste.
it's great.
Yes.
And I love that, you know, because we've been to places where they like over pour because they think that's what they're supposed to do, and I'm like, you know, less, please.
Yes.
And normally I'll just say, that's good, you know.
We want enough for people to be able to actually taste the wine.
Yeah.
But not, you know, not so little that it's one little sip,
Well,
but not so
yeah.
much that it's overwhelming.
And a typical wine tasting goes between 4 and 6 ounces, depending on how many wines you're tasting.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
So, you know, it's usually one glass of wine.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's
Yes.
because it takes that long anyway, right? To taste one, you know, that's how long you should be.
Yes.
You shouldn't be sucking your wine down.
Correct.
All right, this
Correct.
is not a contest. You know, we're not at the keg party. Wine is to be, you know, to coin a phrase from Nick, deliberately
Yes.
consumed.
Yes.
All right, so we're on the next one. We've got,
Yes.
this is 100%.
So we're moving into kind of the heavy hitters here.
Bold reds.
Yes. So Cabernet Franc is first. This is 100% Cabernet Franc from the 2022 growing season. To me, this wine is quintessential Glen Manor red. So when Jeff started making red wines, which was really late 90s, so
Quintessential
a while ago.
Glen Manor red.
Quintessential.
Quintessential.
His mentality,
He's
his
bringing
thought
up
process
keywords.
was, yeah, exactly. His thought process was, I want to make red wine in Virginia that can age for, 10, 12 years and actually be, good when you open it and taste it, kind of like what we were talking about before, ageability. And so this wine is very much that.
So you can?
Oh, absolutely.
You can hold on to it?
Absolutely.
Now, there is a way to store, folks. You know, you're not going to store it in your garage or in your attic.
Right.
So, you know, if you have a basement, that's the place to store it because it's the temperature control is a lot more consistent.
For sure. So this wine is just all of that warm, ripe fruit up front, but then you get the structure there on the back end. Then, because again, we just want that structure, and Nick can talk a little bit more as far as the barrel situation for this wine.
Barrel situation.
Barrel situation. That's the technical term, is barrel situation.
Yeah, well, tell us about how you vintner the barrel situation.
So, you just barrel it. Really, it's you can think of it like, especially when you talk like new oak. And
This is a
things like that.
Cabernet Franc.
It is.
I'm really
I know.
sorry for interrupting.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. We know. Yes. Continue,
Okay.
Nick. Sorry.
Sorry.
I don't know how much new oak is on this vintage, but when you have, and it's all French oak. That's just all we have, and that's all that we use. But you'll get kind of bolder flavors and aromas from newer oak, and you
Yeah.
don't want that to be the only thing that you pick up on the wine, because
Sure.
at a certain point you could have any wine in that barrel,
Yeah.
and
Right.
if it's
Yeah,
strong enough,
But some wine has to be the first wine in the barrel, right?
absolutely.
Well, true. True.
But
If
but
just
you
hit
got to
100%.
you got to
Right.
determine
Right.
which wine that is, right?
Mhm.
So okay, so on that topic, is this new oak? And there's a way to do that, by the way, folks. There is a way to put it in new oak and not destroy the wine at the same time.
Right.
You know, and basically that's longevity. So how long do you put it in the barrel? Okay, so you can get the flavor of the barrel, you know, and the influence of the barrel, and only have it in there a few months. If you kept it in there for a year, that would be all over. I mean,
Right.
it would be a very strong wine, but it would be more oak than grapes. So
And it kind of depends on, I mean, you can leave some wines in new oak. I mean, you'll probably move the wines around a little bit, just different racking throughout the aging of the wine.
right,
But the biggest thing, I think, just in my experience, is in concentration. If you have a concentrated wine, you can hold up. It's not. That's where you get a balance between oak and the wine.
Right.
Right,
And the
right.
fruit. Yeah.
and that goes with the size of the barrel too, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you have a great wine and you want to have a minimal influence of the oak, you put it in a bigger barrel. People are like, wait, there's different size barrels.
Yeah.
You know, they do. They have the typical barrel that you put whiskey in, but you can put wine in there, but I wouldn't recommend it. And then you have the typical barrel that you see that people put, like the one right there, but you can't see that from here. But and then you have one that's like twice as big as that.
Yes.
And that has. I'm going to bring out some technical engineering terms. It has less superficial influence.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but you know, and if you have a great wine, and you have great grape structure, you don't want to overpower it with the oak. So that's what you do. You put it in a bigger barrel, or you leave it in there less time.
Yes.
So this one, describe the process with this one and the oak. Tell us what oak you used, the toast you used, and because this will be fun because this turned out really well.
I don't want it to be less fun, but I do want to say that this one is pre-me, so I did not.
Oh, okay. So I asked a question I shouldn't have asked.
No,
In the sense of, yeah.
Well,
That's not.
and-
It's not fair to ask you to answer that question.
but I can say in a general sense. So there's different coopers, different barrel makers that we use, and that's pretty consistent. You typically find somebody that you like, and the toast level that you like. And if you want to get really specific, you can go down to the forest because different coopers will tell you exactly.
We literally talked about
We
that
did with
yesterday.
Theo,
Yeah. The guy who actually tagged his own trees.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's like, dang, dude. I mean, that's
pretty cool.
specific.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So once you have that, it's pretty reliable. So then, especially when you have the experience to know, like, okay, this is kind of what I'm expecting from the scooper with this amount of, like, this barrel could be 2-3 years old. You kind of know what to expect.
Okay.
And as the wine gets made, because the reds were fermenting them with the skins in fermentation bins. So you see that wine come together, you get a good sense of it, and at that point, you're just matching the wine to the barrels that you want, whether that be new oak, the cooper, different things like that.
Vintage driven.
Yes. Very much
That's
so.
pretty cool. I
Yeah,
like that.
and
I
that
like
goes
that.
again to the kind of the art form aspect of it, and
Yeah.
the fact that Jeff and Nick have the wherewithal to be able to say, okay, this Cabernet Sauvignon in this barrel, this Cabernet Franc in this barrel, this Petit Verdot in that barrel, and just knowing the different cooperages, the different barrels that they have downstairs. I mean, that adds to the complexity of this wine.
That. Yeah, for those of us who don't do, we're not vendors, we're not into the winemaking process. It's really a tough comprehension in the sense of, wow, that's a lot. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it almost becomes confusing in a sense. But let me try and throw a little analogy in here. So, if you want a painting to look a certain way, you use watercolors.
Right.
If you want it to look another way, you might use oil paints,
Right.
or charcoal for another for a third way to do it. So there are different ways and different mediums. So the oil, the watercolor, the charcoal, those are different mediums that you would use to create a different painting in a different look.
Exactly.
It's no different in wine. So
Very
you
similar.
create this different taste based on the barrel that you have. So which cooperages do you favor for, say, a red wine like this?
So there's Terranceau. I mean, there's a few of them, but Terranceau, Sylvan. I never. It's French. So I don't
Honestly,
know
I
how to
only know.
pronounce
How to pronounce it.
I only
Yeah.
know one
I wouldn't.
cooperage, to be honest with you, except for the guy that we talked about. We had a conversation with back in California, who was an actual cooper and a winemaker also. That was
Yeah.
the guy that I told you tagged trees
Yeah.
independently. He would go to France, tag the tree, come back, they cut it down, they bring it over. He would make the freaking barrels. Okay, like I'm sitting here going, you're making the barrel and you're doing the wine.
Yeah, that's
I'm like,
hardcore.
that's just absurd.
Yeah.
But so the only one I really know is Keystone,
Okay.
because I live in the Keystone State. But I do know that there are a lot of different coopers out there, and that is a cool art, by the way.
Well, and that's one of the kind of nice things too when you think about how many coopers there are. Like, I mean, there is the trial and error process, but once you find, especially with your wine style, you can
Yeah,
match
right.
them really well.
And the grape.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I
For
mean,
sure.
we talk about matching wines to food. You have to match grapes to the barrels.
Absolutely.
Because they react differently. If you have American oak, or you have
Right.
French oak, or you have Hungarian oak, the grape reacts differently to each of those
Oh, definitely.
barrels, and you're like, wait, wow, now you're just blowing my mind, kind of thing. But yeah, and that's the tinkering, that's the artistry that you develop as a winemaker. And wow,
Really cool.
I've learned a lot. You've really thrown me into a
Nick
whole
knows his
nother-
stuff, man.
Yeah, he's thrown me into another dimension, I think. Which
Just
is,
make up half of it, as long as it sounds good.
now you're sounding like me. I love it. Yeah, but you know what? The great part is that, or I should say, the best strategy is, if you're going to make something up, make it up so that people can't tell that you're making it
Be
up.
super
And they're just
confident
like,
about it.
that sounds so bizarre, but I can't say you didn't. I think it's true. But yeah, I mean, all of what you said has complete alignment to how grapes are basically grown and produced and processed. That's pretty cool.
For sure.
Now this could be possibly my favorite here.
The last one?
Yeah, disclaimer, I've actually been here before. And so the Vin Blanc and the Saint Ruth, I noticed like right away. The Cabernet Franc, I think, has developed a little bit since the last time.
This wine, I always
So-
tell the story, and I must tell it. So the Cabernet Franc is the reason why
She
I
has
work
to.
here. I have to. When I moved here 8.5 years ago, the winery where Nick and I were working at the time, they did a tasting. It was the best of Virginia Reds, and there were about 8 or 10 red wines from around the state.
Okay.
And the Glen Manor Cabernet Franc, different vintage of course, was in that lineup. And I took one sip of that wine, and I thought to myself, well, this can't be from Virginia. This tastes too good to be from Virginia.
Right. No, that's that.
Yes, I could have sworn they were putting California fruit in this wine, and that's the reason I came to Glen
Yeah.
Manor.
Did they like outsource some grapes? and
Right,
just
exactly.
Mix them in,
I
right?
legitimately
Yeah.
thought that is what happened. And no, it just goes to show you, when you get your fruit ripe enough, when you tend to your vines properly,
Yeah.
that is, and the site. Jeff will tell you that the main reason our wine tastes the way it does is the site. I
Yeah.
think that's being pretty
That's big.
humble.
That's big.
It's a lot of work on all the guys and gals that are up there, but the site really helps
Yeah.
a lot. It really does, and that is a beautiful wine.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I've got a 1/4 acre hill on the back at the back of my house. That when I grow some grapes there.
grow some Franc there.
You know they would grow well there.
Oh, they would,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I think you're right.
The hill in back of my house is very it's pretty steep. It's like 2.5 to 1, and it would be perfect for wine.
Yeah, you probably
And we've actually talked about it, but I'm like, that's a lot of work. I mean, seriously,
It is a lot of work. Yes, yes.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
like having a dog versus having a cat.
Exactly,
You know what I mean?
that's true.
You know, a cat, you clean out the litter box, you throw out some food, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
You know, but a dog, it's like constant. You know, and that's the way it works, right?
Right.
But a vineyard, it's like
It's true.
you're either all or nothing.
So Kelly is Jeff's wife, and she works here with me in the tasting room, and she always says, a winery, a vineyard, having a vineyard is like having a boat, but at least you can get on the boat. A vineyard is so much work. And people ask us all the time. They say, "Oh, do you have any other, crops?" Or we're like, "No,
This is
18 acres
enough.
of vines is enough. It really is.
This is enough.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work." So yes.
Yeah, let's talk about this one.
St. Ruth, last but not least. So just a little backstory with the name. So Susan and T were Jeff, our owner and winemaker, his great grandparents, and so they purchased the original property in 1901. So this is a Century Farm with Virginia. Yes. So it's been in the family for 4 generations. Jeff is 4th generation farmer, and they had one daughter. Her name was Ruth. She's the 2nd generation, and so this wine is named in homage alongside of the Hotter Hill.
So Ruth lived in the early 1900s.
Yes.
2nd generation.
2nd generation,
Okay,
exactly. So yeah, Susan and T are the S and the T, and then Ruth. And so this wine was originally, the idea with this wine is right bank Bordeaux in style. So this is typically Merlot Cabernet Franc. It is always Merlot Cabernet Franc dominant. This wine, kind of like what Nick was talking about before, we've made some wines like the Petit Rouge that are more, drink within the next few years. This wine is really meant for aging. It is a wine that we think is showing nicely now. We just released this wine on Monday, actually. So
this wine is like
this is only the 3rd day that we've had it. Well, technically 2nd, since we were closed yesterday. Third day we've had it available.
Wow.
So yes, we think it's showing nicely. This wine is meant to put it away. If you put it away for 10 years and you opened it,
it's good now, though.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
And I think that's the beauty about a lot of Glen Manor wines is, are they enjoyable now? Yes. Are they going to just continue to improve? Also, yes.
I like the tribute.
Yeah.
Kind of like the backstory. Yeah, the backstory. And, it means a lot to people. As 5-generation farming, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. It's pretty cool. Yep. Really
I'm
cool.
a 1-generation farmer. Bees. I do bees.
Yeah, so St. Ruth it's just a beautiful wine. It's very, you have the structure there, but it's very pretty. Merlot is a very pretty varietal. You don't get a lot of that, the dried flower situation going on. But you get, again, still that beautiful blue fruit, black fruit situation too.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, adding the Petit Verdot doesn't hurt on it.
Oh, yeah. And this wine is heavy Petit Verdot.
Yeah,
There's
25%. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, typically any more than that, you'll just see 100% Petit Verdot.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, 50% Merlot, 25% Cab Franc, which is what we have here, and then 25% Petit Verdot.
Exactly.
And you can taste the influences of all 3. So sometimes you only get if you have a blend of sorts. No, this is not a typical blend. This is like an upscale blend, to be honest with you. If you have a blend of sorts, you only taste one versus another. I mean, one just generally overrides for some reason. I don't know why that happens, but in me, because we tasted one that had 10% Petit Verdot, and the first thing I tasted when I was like, wow, this tastes like Petit Verdot. We get that a lot, and I'm like, oh, how do you do that with 10%, right? But this one has a really nice blend because you can taste the Merlot, you can taste the Cabernet Franc, you can taste the Petit Verdot.
It's pretty integrated.
You can taste them
right?
all,
Yeah.
which is unusual for a blend, because a blend is usually a blend,
right?
For a reason, and you blend it because you want to bring something unique to the table, because people haven't had this blend before, hence the white that we tasted earlier.
Correct.
So you want to make something that people are going to enjoy, people are going to like, people are going to say, I want that. And when you have like this, where you can literally taste all three, that's crazy. I mean, I haven't experienced that very often.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's something that we do really well here is, again, that integration of all the varietals and being able to taste the different components, And it's like what Nick was talking about with the blending trials. When we sit down with the blending trials, it's okay, and the blending for the Hotter Hill, which is our Cabernet Sauvignon dominant blend, and the St. Ruth, I mean, weeks. It takes sometimes weeks to get to that exact blend that we want for that wine.
Yeah.
And we'll just say, okay, need a little bit more Petit Verdot. Okay, we need a little bit more Petit Verdot. Okay, we need a little bit more Petit Verdot. And we just keep adding and tinkering until we get it where we know that it's going to show well.
In this case, 25%.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's
a surprise. I mean, it's an unusual amount of Petit Verdot in it, because it typically is the 10% or the 4%.
It is. Typically, St. Ruth is somewhere between 8 to 12% Petit Verdot, but with these past couple vintages, we've really liked it. When you want color and structure in your blends, Petit Verdot is your
And this
varietal.
is like by no means overpowering.
No.
I mean, you taste it and you're like, that's really smooth, and it's nice. So, when you have 25% Petit Verdot, you're taking that risk, right?
That's right.
But there's the tinkering, right? I think it needs a little bit more. It needs a little bit more.
And I think that's one of my favorite parts about the process is that when you go through all of the barrels, you have your notes on it, and you have each individual barrel. This is how it shows. This is the impression I'm getting today.
Right.
And you may go through that process once, twice, maybe 3 times just to lock it in, because it is changing a little bit.
Right.
But then you step into the blending trial process, and so the Petit Verdot barrels that may go into this, the impression that you get from them, it's always the balance. Like it's you try out oh, maybe this barrel in one blend, maybe it's the same percentage blend, but maybe in this other one it's a different barrel.
Yes.
It shows a little bit different.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things about the Glen Manor wines is that the blends basically have their own character.
For real.
Half the time when I'm talking to Cassie about it, especially if it's a library wine, she's like, "Hey, try this." I smell it, in St. Ruth, it's like, oh, it smells like St. Ruth. And it doesn't matter.
Oh,
how
yeah.
And
You can tell.
For sure. Yeah.
So that kind of character, and also especially when we're talking about blends, I think the biggest thing is no one varietal jumps out, because each blend is harmony.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right, but that's a hard thing to do.
It is.
It really is a hard thing to do, because when I taste one and I'm like, yeah, it's got Petit Verdot. Well, it's 10%. You're like, wait, how does that happen, right?
Yeah.
But this one is a very good balance and a blend between all three. So you can taste all of them, but none of them are more prominent than the other.
Yeah.
Which I love. And and the fact is, we talked about it earlier with that aha moment with the one that can go from, just a strict, drink it within 1 or 2 years to, you can let this one ride. Similarly, that blend, okay, so you know where it's at today, and you taste it and you go, it's like the chef that goes, needs more salt.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's no different.
Yes.
And you're like, this is really good now, but I think if we add, and then you add that, and it doesn't matter what it is. It just says, the St. Ruth is gonna rock out if we do this.
Yes.
We can sell it this way,
Right.
but we can rock it out this way.
Yeah.
And you can taste that. You can taste that. I've had, I remember years ago when I volunteered at a winery, they had a Merlot, right? That it was still in the barrel. They were giving a tasting from the barrel, right? So I was giving a tasting from the barrel, and I tasted it myself. Now I think it was 2009, and 2009 Merlot. And 3 months, it's still going to be in the barrel for 3 months, and I'm like, holy crap, this is good, and it's not even finished yet.
Right.
So at that point, okay, I drink it now.
Yeah.
but it still needs to finish. And you're looking at it and going, holy mackerel, this is going to be so good in 3 months.
Very true.
Yeah, so you can taste that.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being, you know, in the room,
Yes.
you know, and checking out, you know, pull the cork on the barrel, put the, you know, the thing in, pull it out, and you say, oh, yeah, okay, let's you know, add this, because I think we're gonna take it to like 3 levels up if we do this.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the whole thing about vintage winemaking.
Yes.
And I want to repeat that a bunch of times, because I think that's a different, it's a different approach to winemaking.
It is.
Well, and just with like, so these blends, especially the kind of St. Ruth, Hunter Hill, there is no amount that we are setting out to make each vintage.
True.
If the vintage doesn't show that it's a Hunter Hill or something,
Right.
it doesn't get made.
That's a great point.
There's no.
Oh,
Wait. Oh.
yeah. See, there you go. Right.
That's a great
Yeah.
point. There
You
we
can
have.
here's the thing, right? You can
Yeah.
force it,
Right.
but you're like, no,
Yep.
not good enough.
We have, so we're releasing our first Hunter Hill in 5 years, in just next
Yeah.
month in December. St. Ruth we didn't make for, 19, 20, 21. No St. Ruth.
Right. I remember. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like out.
Because if we're not happy with that
Can't do
fruit,
it.
it's
Can't do
not.
it.
We're not making that wine.
Yeah.
It's just not. Again, it's not worth the sacrifice of the quality.
Right. I mean, you can still make a good wine out of it, but you're not going to make that wine.
Correct.
You know, and the St. Ruth is really a specific wine.
Yes.
It
Yes.
really
Yes.
is.
It is.
You know, and it's got to have the certain, you know, what is it? Je ne sais quoi. Yeah, but it has to have that, right? So you know, I'm not, you know, that's the artist thing, right? I don't like the way it looks.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I actually watched the guy. He built a stone wall right inside somebody's house. It was probably, I want to say 14 feet. Stone wall. He looked at it and he goes, I don't like it. And he literally tore it down to like 2 feet
Good grief.
and rebuilt it, right? He rebuilt it, and I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, that's fabulous. I liked it before he tore it down, right? I liked it before he tore it down. But then when he tore it down and rebuilt it, I'm like, wow, that's like, you know, it just wasn't up to his quality.
Right.
And when he redid it, I was like, that's an award winner there, right? I mean, boom. So, and you know that as an artist, it is. That's what artists do. They go, okay, so this is what, no, doesn't meet the standard. Not this time.
Right.
Maybe, hopefully next time, but not this time.
Exactly.
Because the public demands quality consistency. If you're going to say, oh, okay, this St. Ruth is going to be this.
Right.
It has to be this. And
Well-
so, and it is. I've tasted so far, two different years.
vintages,
Yeah,
yeah.
2 different vintages.
Yep.
And the quality has remained consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jeff's he's had people that have been following him since, again, the late 90s when he was working at a vineyard on the other side of the mountain here. And so, I mean, you're talking, again, almost 30 years. And if there's not that consistency of quality, those people wouldn't keep coming back year after year. And
Yeah.
it's important, you know?
Oh, and that's how, and it's not a following.
No.
It's not a following.
Right.
It's not like a fan base.
Right,
you know,
right,
for,
exactly.
You know,
right.
it's like, I have to have this one.
Right.
Because it's a good one.
Right,
And
exactly.
And it gives, you know, that flavor profile fits me, if you will. And so your fan base, quote unquote, the following is very specific, right?
Right. True.
And you have memberships here, right?
We do.
Yeah.
Do. It's a case club, and you know, you'll see there's no brochures, there's no, you know, ask us about our case club. We don't do that because we want people to buy the wine because they like it.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course there is a, you know, percentage discount associated with that, but we really want people to be, the wine really does speak for itself, and you know, we're just the vessel to talk about it. But if somebody likes it enough that they want to purchase an entire case, then great. And then we do little things throughout the year to thank them for that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you have like pickup parties or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Little events throughout the year.
Okay. And do you have? No, I'm masking. I should have asked ahead of time. Do you have musical like people venues? And here's the thing: you don't actually need it. To be honest with you, a musical venue here would ruin the atmosphere.
Exactly. And that was
Like,
the mentality, really.
Right.
I mean, when I asked Jeff about working here, and kind of I had this whole big long spiel about what are you looking for as far as the ambiance and the experience for the guests, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And he said one word, and that was tranquil. And I think that
Yeah.
it really boils down to so many different things.
Yeah.
We want this to be a very tranquil, peaceful experience.
I mean,
and
you can literally take a bottle of wine and meditate.
Exactly. And we have people say that all the time.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
time. Between those chairs that are, they kind of force you to relax, and we don't have cell service, so that forces you to relax. And it's just a place where you can come and just be.
So I really do like that, because you go some places and you're hearing music. Sometimes you like the music, sometimes you don't like the music.
True.
And there are places where it enhances the experience.
That's true. Yes,
I'm not gonna devalue that,
Of
because
course.
there are places that enhances the experience.
Of course.
But I think here it would actually devalue the experience here, because I've been to a lot of wineries, and this is one of those wineries where you literally could just chill.
Yes, and that's why we don't even pump music through speakers. Nope, it's just you just hear.
Yeah, so I do like that feature.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking to get like music, not gonna happen here. If you're looking to chill and drink good wine,
Yes.
it's gonna happen here.
Yes.
So let's see if the yellow jacket flies in front of the camera. Anyway, so what is there anything else that we need to go over? Any other practical stuff, or we've had 6 great wines here. So this has been fabulous. Nick, you've created this new thing. Now I'm going to have to go and do some research about some, you're like, oh, I'm so vague and nondescript, but you actually tell real things. So it's like, okay, no, you're not really. You're just kind of pretending to be vague and nondescript. But you gave some really great, understandings of different things, and I learned some new barrel scenarios that I wasn't thinking about before. So thank you for joining us, Nick. Cassie, thanks for co-hosting and being part of the management here.
Sure.
But in the meantime, hey, thanks for joining us for another Tipsy Tagalongs podcast. This has been really great. We've had a lot of fun, and this is a great place to come. I mean, it's been relaxing just hanging out and talking to these two, and we had the equivalent of a glass of wine over about an hour or so. So, come on down here and enjoy life, journey more often. In the meantime, we're going to be in some other places. Look to see where we're going to be, or look to see where we go live, where we pop up, just like that. All in all, find us on Journey More Often, our YouTube page. It's Journey More Often all together with 2 O's in the more, which is kind of like strange, right? Anyway, so thanks everybody, and until the next time, enjoy life, journey more often.
Peace.